Hi, again, my name is Jasmine Anderson. I am the operations manager with the Zan Wesley Helms Junior Community Outreach Center, and we want to thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate those that have made this transition with us over to this virtual platform in wake of the pandemic, and we definitely hope that everyone is staying safe and social distancing. We have been doing lunch and learns since we've been at the center. And with our lunch and learns, we typically focus on how to scale the small business forward, as well as individuals that are looking to start small businesses or even start a nonprofit. So this particular month, we have been focusing on job readiness. So we've done a resume writing class, and we are doing the 21st century job hunt, which is going to help us with those different interview skills as well. And then our last class of this series will be how to do those multi-tier applications and how to navigate those online applications, since everything is moving to a virtual platform. And with that being said, I now want to introduce our presenter today. And I'm going to read her bio here. And so we have, and please correct me if I said this wrong, but it is Deanna, correct?
It's Dina.
Dina, my apologies.
Spelled like Deanna, so it's my mom's fault. So you're all good.
So our presenter today is Dina Hurd. Hurd has had more than 20 years of experience in coaching and human talent development as a facilitator, coach, and mediator. She is a skilled communicator who can clearly communicate ideas and concepts throughout an organization. She is a diplomatic team player who is passionate about achieving results that drive performance and profit. Hurd is a creative facilitator with knowledge of adult learning principles who has designed and executed unique training experiences in a variety of nonprofits and corporate contexts that resulted in improved employee engagement, transformational leadership, and enhanced customer experiences. She enjoys looking at what is not working in an individual, team, or organization and creating a path to excellence. She specializes in shifting culture from extrinsic, I'm sorry if I butchered that word.
It's all good.
Transactional performance to intricate innovation missions. So without further ado, we want to welcome you. We appreciate you for not only donating your time, but your expertise with us today. And we just look forward to learning what you have to provide.
Okay. I'm going to give you the real introduction. My name's Dina. And I believe that you were created for something amazing. And we're going to tap into showing that to those folks that deserve you. And so in this process, I want you to feel really empowered, because we are going to do things. Things have shifted, and interviewing now is not the same, and job hunting now is not the same as it used to be. But the great news is we can be very strategic in how that we pursue this, and it makes a difference. And so it takes some hard work up front, but then once you have these things that we're going to talk about, really where you're comfortable with it, it makes everything else get so much easier. So I see Loretta, Jasmine, Audrey, and so welcome. I'm glad you're here. I am coming to you from Sulphur Springs, Texas, which is about an hour and a half to the east, down 30. So come visit me sometime. And I just really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this, because it never fails that it's always just a blessing for me to be able to be just with folks who want to be a better version of themselves and stay up on all the latest things. So thank you. Thank you for the honor and privilege of being here today, Jasmine. I truly appreciate it. All right. Welcome to 21st Century Job Hunt. We're going to go straight to the mission, because that's what's important, right? Your mission is not impossible. It is possible, and we're going to talk about how. So I want you to, I don't have to hear you, but I want you to say this with me. My mission is to guide a company through the process of connecting my story, as told by my resume, my LinkedIn profile, and my cover letter, with their mission as defined by their job description, their values, and their culture. We want to make sure it's a good match. It's so much like looking for that life partner, okay? Because you don't want to get in somewhere just because, you know, you need the money right now. It just backfires every single time. So we want you to find a way to weed out the places that are not going to be the right fit for you, present the best version of yourself, and move forward into a job that you enjoy. Does that sound good so far? Awesome. Okay. Here is our agenda. So you'll see first, we're going to talk about connecting your resume, LinkedIn, and cover letter to your interview. I know that you all have covered resumes, so that's going to go pretty quickly, all right? Then we're going to talk about the interview. Next, we will have a partner practice where we stop and you go into a breakout room and practice what we have learned. We're going to talk a little bit about social media because that is actually a very important part of the virtual world right now. And then we're going to talk about all things technical when it comes to the interview process. And at the end, I would love for you to ask any questions that you might have. And so now we are off. Okay, connecting my resume, LinkedIn, and cover letter to my job interview. They go together. So if we do things right in your resume, it parlays over into LinkedIn and also your cover letter. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at professional summary, your core competencies, technical skills, experience, and what I call your highlight reel. All right, here is an example of a resume of someone who does not have very much work experience, all right? This is a college student, their parent just shared it with me, so I thought I would share it with you. So just to show you, you do not have to have a lot of experience in a particular field. You can design your resume like this, where you put some experience, any kind of education or honors. You do not have to put a date on your education. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Your objective, and see on this left side, all of the skills. So keep that in mind. You can have a resume like this as well. Down at the bottom, you'll notice an email, a phone number, and then a link that because everything's online, that they can click and go to that LinkedIn profile page. So that is going to be something that if you're not in the habit of having that on there, make sure that you include that because it's going to get you ahead much more quickly. Okay, let's look at the components that I just spoke about. This is a resume that has everything broken down with the questions that we need to address. So here is the very beginning part, and this is called a professional summary. It's about 4 lines long, and it's capturing the highlights of your career that are aligned with the job description. You're going to hear me say that over and over and over. So at the beginning of this, you look at that job description, you look at your resume, and then go through your resume and highlight everything that's matching, okay? Then if there's something on that job description, but it's not on your resume, but you know that you've had experience in it, or you believe it needs to fit somewhere, go ahead and add it in. Just don't add it in such a way, if you haven't done it before, don't put it under one of the jobs because it's too easy in this day and age for them to find out that that's a falsehood. So don't misrepresent yourself. But this beginning thing is going to be used several different places. So it'll be used as the beginning of your cover letter. Okay, so when you're writing the cover letter, you're going to use this same paragraph. When it comes to your LinkedIn profile, it's going to be that summary that's on LinkedIn. So we're doing the work once, and then we'll use it 3 places. One of the things that I want you to make sure is on your resume, your cover letter, and your LinkedIn profile are the keywords. So you guys have already talked in depth. I just want to do a quick review about keywords. You're going to find them in that job description, and then you're going to find it most specifically in the qualifications requirements of a job listing. They are used by the employers to weed people out that do not meet their criteria. So to search for potential employees, those keywords have to be in the resume, under the job duties, or somewhere in there, okay? That's what I want to focus on. Now, here's all the different places that you can put the keywords, okay? In your summary of qualifications, if you have an objective, in the objective place, in the core competencies, when you're listing out the bullet points of your accomplishments, or if you're highlighting your job duties. So let's take a little bit more of a look at the resume. Just 1 second, having trouble switching. Okay, there's next section is going to be your core competencies. So these skills need to include keywords from job description. So it's pretty often that I will see someone, you know, and have a conversation with them, and they want to get into this position, and I'm like, well, you know, do you know Outlook? And they're like, well, yeah. And I'm like, well, you know, if they're specifically asking for Outlook, make sure that that's in your core competencies and technical skills. And they're like, well, Dina, I mean, doesn't everyone know Outlook? And I'm like, well, you haven't met my dad, because that is just not his thing. You know, it's not going to be in Outlook, and there's no problem with that. Don't take for granted that you know something and use it and are so comfortable with it that you may not have it in those core competence and technical skills. Make sure that you don't sell yourself short, okay? Any of the technical skills that are relevant, make sure those are in there. All right, let's move to the next part. This is work experience. You'll notice that the work experience at there's the job listing. So she's a training specialist in a standardized patient program. So that goes on to a little more detail and gives you some context. And then that short little paragraph is a mini job description that gives some context. And then remember, I talked about highlighting those things that were accomplishments. Well, this is the spot in these bullet points. You're going to see what that can look like. So the bullet point, you want to focus on the impact that you've had, any kind of contribution. A good format to keep in mind is known as PAR. There was a problem. This is the action I took. This was the result. Employers are looking for, companies are looking for people that can take care of business without a whole lot of help. They take that initiative, they can handle the problems. And then I want you to go down under additional experience. In this additional experience section, you can go back beyond the 10 to 15. So keep in mind, we normally just have 10 to 15 years on a page, okay? Or on a resume. But let's say there's something in the back that you want to pull up, that's fine. Just make sure it's in this additional experience section, and then drop your dates to avoid potentially creating gaps in your employment history, okay? And then remember those bullet points and stress the parts of that experience that were really important, okay? Am I going too fast? I'm going fast because you guys are reviewing, but I also know that all of this coordinates into everything that we're going to be doing in the interview. So I want to make sure if you have done all of these things, then when it comes to the interview, you're actually very well prepared for that. So that's why I'm hitting these things. So how is everyone doing? Give me a thumbs up, or I'm just doing okay, or hey, could you slow down a little bit, Dina? All right, very good. Here we go. And then at the very end, I talked a little bit earlier about putting the education part. You'll notice that this person does not have the year. You don't have to have that anymore. So just keep that in mind. And I also want to show you the two different kinds of resumes. When you guys talked about resumes, Jasmine, did you talk about the two different types?
In that particular class, we just did a basic. This is Audrey.
Oh, okay,
We
gotcha.
talked about the general resume.
Okay.
We can do
Okay.
two different types.
Okay, so I want to talk to you about the functional resume because it's the one that I find people don't know about. And it was something that was incredibly useful for me. And so I am a huge fan. I was a teacher, kindergarten teacher, and then I also was a stay-at-home mom until my daughter went to kindergarten. And so there were gaps in my resume, and was also a really big shift of what I wanted to do. So I wanted to make sure to represent things in a way that catapulted me towards the field that I wanted to be in. All right. So the functional resume rearranges employment history into sections that highlight skills and accomplishments. So it's a little different than what you may normally think of with a resume. And you can use it if you've held a lot of jobs. If you're fresh out of college, if your background is varied and it doesn't add up to what the focused career path that you want it to, you move into a field that is totally different from the one where most of your experience is. That's what I did. And then I had the 5-year gap with our daughter being born and getting to be a mom for those years. So I just wanted to go through that because we're going to use your resume in the interview process. And I would need you to be able to tell the story of your resume in such a way that it helps that company connect what you want and what you in this position and what you bring to the table, because the story has to come to life, and the story is you, and you are the storyteller. You're guiding them down the path of all that you have to offer. And it can feel kind of weird and uncomfortable. I'll be honest, hearing Jasmine read my bio was really uncomfortable. You know, I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope I don't mess up, right? So you're gonna have to get used to that place of being that representation of the best version of yourself and sharing it so that people can really catch on to who you are and what you bring to everything that they are looking for in that job description. All right. As far as pros and cons, since I've just introduced to you, I want to give you both sides of it. It'll help to highlight skills and accomplishments. It hides gaps in employment. It omits dates of employment for those that had several jobs in a short span, which can happen, right? It has happened to all of us, I feel certain. Helps to draw attention to the skill set when maybe there isn't the actual experience in the field. And then the cons, because there aren't dates, sometimes it can raise eyebrows of some employers. It may not give a clear and concise list of work history, and some job boards do not accept functional resumes. So that's becoming less and less true. So I'm just going to give you an example of how I speak through my story, because I feel like that helps. I taught kindergarten at an alternative school for Dallas Independent School District. That was my first career. And so what I found is that my heart was being tugged towards mediation, because the children in my classroom, they were having a really difficult time because their parents were going through divorces. And so I started studying on how can I help this child. And I learned that 80% of all of the divorces are handled in mediation. And that when a couple mediates their divorce, there is less anger and less frustration and less violence. And so I became trained in mediation, and from there pursued coaching individuals because I saw the struggle that people were going through in their divorce. So then I became a life coach, and then from there got really excited about coaching individuals in their businesses, their entrepreneurs, all of those types of things, which then parlayed all the way over into the corporate world, where I now get to train and coach for all sorts of different kinds of companies and have amazing experiences in an area that, you know, started off in alternative school in Dallas. So my story, if you look at the theme, is I love to help people. And I love to help people be a better version of themselves. So I don't necessarily tell this rest of this, all of that I just said, I would absolutely say in an interview when I'm explaining this transition and why I have this functional interview. functional resume. What I wouldn't say is I'm a preacher's daughter and God has given me a heart for people. And so when I see a need, I want to take care of them and help them be able to shift and grow and be the person that God created them. So that's the actually, you know, when you look at my core, that's my DNA. And I came by it super honest, but not preacher's daughter's role. So now let's look at, we've got your resume, it's all set. So where does it go? How does it help you with your cover letter? How does it help you with your LinkedIn? The summary of skills, you can see, this is my LinkedIn. And what you can see is the summary of skills right underneath my name in that very top of that profile section. And then I wanted to point out to you that you can see how it says open to job opportunities. You can actually set that. That's a part of one of the things that's on there. And here's the deal. If you went to look at my site, you could not see that unless you're a recruiter. So only recruiters can see that I am open to a job opportunity. So I'm sharing that with you because sometimes you're in a job, but you want to look for another job, but you don't want anyone really in your current job to know what's going on. So know that you can set that two ways. You can set it where everybody knows, or you can set it where it's just for recruiters. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that as well. Now, I want you to look at the picture. So this picture is the same picture on my Twitter account, same picture on my Facebook account. When they Google your name and come looking to see what is out there, it needs to be the same picture all places, and it needs to be a professional picture. So that makes it easier. It takes the confusion away, and it paints you in a positive light. So this is you branding yourself. So just keep that in mind as well. Okay, here is that highlight reel that I told you about. That beginning part of your resume is now made its way onto the About section of your LinkedIn. And the specialty areas, that section is down at the bottom. And we just took that from the other part of your resume. So again, we've done all the hard work on the resume, and now we're just putting it into other places. So I would use this also in your beginning paragraph of your cover letter. And then in the second paragraph of your cover letter, you start linking together the job description with the experience that you have. When I was, working on this project for this company, I did project management, and project management, here's some of the results I was able to get. I increased efficiency. I saved us money. Any kind of data that you could put in there that would be from those bullet points that have already been created in your cover letter. So you're showing that, remember that problem, action, result, you're showing that in relationship to that job description in the middle of that cover letter. So again, we do all the hard work on the resume, and then it helps us in all of these other different places. Okay, so now we've covered the very first part, and now we're going to move into the interview. This is the exciting part. So let's think about, let's go through some tips to consider when you're preparing for the interview. Look at the job description with your resume in hand. Highlight all the places on your resume that correlate with that job description. Write down the stories that the interviewer, so that that interviewer can help you. They understand where you're coming from in your experience. Use specific examples of how your skills and abilities would fit into that job. Do some research on the business. You have to look to see how the job you're interviewing for impacts the company. So I actually interviewed for a job with Interstate Batteries, and it took me a while to really figure out how the role that I was being interviewed for really connected to the rest of Interstate, because Interstate, they're not franchises, but it's a complicated thing. But I took the time to figure all that out so that there wasn't any confusion in the way that I answered the questions. I wanted to have my head wrapped around the job so that I came in without confusion, because that confusion can come in and sound like you're not confident in your role. And that's not true, you know? So take the time to research the business, make notes on the values and the mission statement, what connects with you. Why would you want to work there? So now I want to do a new share and come over to, well, just give me a moment. Let me see. Okay, do you all see the Interstate Battery website on your screen? No, okay. Share. And,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Yes.
Okay, now you do, it's come up now. Awesome, okay. So I wanted to show you, because it's one thing for me to tell you about what to do, but I really want to show you what I mean. And since I gave the Interstate example, that, you know, this is on their Join Our Team page, and they have an explanation of their foundation of values. And so after watching this video, I understood what their different values were. And then they do something really fun where there's one extra value that you get to define that's important to you. And so that's a really neat thing. So before I went into interview, I decided what my value, what I wanted that to be when I came in. So that was one thing that I had written down. So, you know, it has the health and wellness, it has the benefits, it has their package. So you can walk in and know a whole lot about this company. But the big thing that was fascinating to me was, again, the foundation about values. So we're not going to watch that, but I just wanted you to understand that in your research, you're researching about what the company has to offer you. So if in my research, I always like to go to Glassdoor, because Glassdoor is a site where you can research a company and read what people who have worked there have to say about it. And, you know, I want to know what the culture's like. It's great if Interstate says that they have these values and that that's what they stand by, but what if that is actually not the case? Well, I don't really, you know, it's not impossible for there to be a disconnect between what they intend and what happens. But do I want to work somewhere that's not going to be a good fit for me? So you can go on Glassdoor and you can see, you know, they hire you at this wage and it takes 7 years before you're going to get a pay raise, and you're going to be asked to work weekends, and it's not going to be overtime. And all of a sudden, that company no longer looks like a place that's going to be a good fit for you. So Glassdoor is something that I highly recommend that you look at as well. So I'm going to stop sharing this and hop back to right here. Okay. Make sure that you make notes on the values. And number 3, the values, the mission statement, and take note of your heart. What connects with you? Why would you want to work there? What is it about the company? Because they're going to ask you, they're going to say, you know, why are you interested in working with us at Interstate Battery? And in my case, I was able to say some of the values and what really connected. And then I really liked that they had a chaplain program. And so the fact that they have a chaplain that is there for their employees in a time of crisis, well, I thought that's pretty cool. That's absolutely something that resonates with my values and, you know, needs that I don't even expect to have met at a work situation. Okay, this next part's really important. Practice explaining your resume like a story. Okay. We are in a different stage. There was a time that we would read our resume and it would sound much more like a list, right? It's a list of accomplishments. Well, that doesn't represent the whole person. And one of the things that has become incredibly evident as part of this whole pandemic is that we are seeing the whole person. When you are having a Zoom call and the dog barks, or a Zoom call and your child comes in and asks you a question about homework, you are seeing much more of that person. And so when you're in the job, the role of being interviewed, you're that interviewee, you represent the whole person of you by stating your resume in such a way that it's a story and you're just telling the story. It's not something that we've done a lot of practice in. So I'm asking you to take the time to practice. How do I tell the story in the best possible light of myself? All right. So next, write down questions about the job and or the company so that you have questions ready for the interview. So one of the things that I get to do is train managers in this very role of interviewing. And one of the big takeaways is if someone comes in and interviews for a job and does not have any questions at the end waiting or ready, then they simply are viewed as not interested. They're not really interested in this position. I'm not sure why they're here. They didn't take the time to explore the website. They don't really understand our culture. They don't have any questions for me. So there have been interviews that I have been in where they've done a fantastic job answering my questions as part of the interview process. And so when they come to that point and say, do you have any questions? It's perfectly okay to say, well, I was wondering about this and this and this, and you've already answered those things. So actually you have addressed the things that were important to me. Can I, if I think of something else, later on this afternoon or tomorrow, can I email you and ask, the question? And they're like, absolutely, yes, we would be happy to do that. And so that's great because you have gotten their email, and it's great because they really know that you're interested in that position and that you had those questions. Okay. Talk with any friends that work for that business. Ask for insights and tips. So how do I find out who works for that company? Go to LinkedIn. Go to LinkedIn and do a search and for that company's name. It's going to populate a list, and at the top of the list is going to be the people that you're connected with. And so you can contact them through LinkedIn, or if they're a close enough friend, you can pick up the phone and call them or email them. There may be someone that is between you and another person. So that would come up as you have a connection that's connected to someone that works at Interstate Batteries. So you can contact Fred and say, Fred, I see that you go to work with Barney over here, and I have an interview there, and I would love to talk to someone that works there and just get their insights and their tips. So it's perfectly okay. It's not frowned upon to do that. It's just networking, and it's a lot easier networking than when we used to have to show up at the networking events face to face. So this is online networking, and it's absolutely positively something that you can do, and that it will help you very much. And so I've had a situation where that happened for a friend of mine, and the person, she wanted to work for Southwest Airlines, and I was able to introduce her to someone. Well, now those two are the best of friends, and they're both working there at Southwest. But it never would have happened if she wouldn't have taken the time to reach out to me and ask for that introduction. So I very strongly believe in us helping each other move forward in our workspaces. Okay, next, create a fact sheet with telephone numbers, addresses of your references, your former employers, so you are ready when you are asked to complete an application. So sometimes the application is in person, sometimes it is online. More and more and more, it's becoming online. Creating this fact sheet, it's just like that resume. It may take you a little while to get all of those things together, but once you've done it, you have it and you are ready. It is not uncommon for someone to say, this was wow, I really enjoyed this interview with you. We want to talk to you in the next round. Can I please have your references? That's not an uncommon way for things to end. And so having that ready so that that's a really quick email to that person, or you may even just be able to spout it off, in that moment. Just keep in mind that all of this is talking about preparation, so that you can knock it out of the park. Okay, let's move on to the 2 types of interviews. The first type is called the traditional interview. In a traditional interview, you're going to be asked a series of questions, which typically have straightforward answers. So some of these could be, what are your strengths and weaknesses? And I bet if I ask you, you've had that before. And so in my case, my response would be like, I'm a people person. I love really being in the middle of projects, team, and the energy that comes from working in a team, getting to be creative with others and innovate. Oh, I'm super passionate about that. It is challenging for me to sit down, and the idea of sitting in a room and running numbers all day long and making sure everything is, all about the minutia of the numbers, that is not energizing. Now, I'm giving you that example because I don't want you to answer my weaknesses are. I don't want that in their brain. I don't want them to think, Sheila said that she's bad at accounting. No, that is not what I want them to think. I want them to think, what energizes Sheila? What is it that, oh my goodness, when this happens, just part of her comes alive and she loves it, and that's great. And we're going to get the best out of Sheila when we have her in those creative people, team kinds of innovation projects. We're not going to get the best out of her, and it's going to be difficult for her if we put her in the role of bookkeeper and we keep her away from people, and she's going to be really frustrated. So that's what I want you to think about. Instead of saying, I just don't want you to say my weaknesses. I want you to represent it as, it would be challenging for me if, fill in the blank of what is something that you don't feel like would be a good fit for you. And you might, in a different setting, call it a weakness, but please do not say my weakness is in the middle of this interview, okay? Think about what major challenges and problems did you face, and that's a great way to really share that you're resilient, share that you're a problem solver, share that you're not afraid of the hard work, basically is what I'm trying to say. How did you handle these challenges and problems? They're, listening for that, and then describe a typical work week. What does a typical work week look like? So they're listening for the tasks that you do, and then there's assumptions being made about the skills that you have, okay? So in a traditional interview, they are definitely looking for skills. They're definitely looking for your attitude. Are you going to fit in the culture? Do you create problems or do you solve problems? Those types of things. Now we're going to look at the difference. So on the other side is the behavioral interview. In a behavioral interview, an employer has decided what skills are needed in the individual they plan to hire, and will ask questions to find out if the candidate possesses those skills. Instead of asking how you would behave, They will ask how you did behave. The interviewer will want to know how you handled a situation instead of what you might do in the future. So they say that the best predictor of future performance is what you've done in the past. And that's what we have found. And so this method is, basically they have watched their most productive employees and created a skills list. And they want to hear that you have not only done this before, but you've done it successfully. And so that you're not going to require a lot of training for what they need for you to accomplish. So let's look a little more into both of these, okay? I started to go into a deep dive there, but I actually have a better slide for that. So we'll just wait a second. Okay, these are the top 5 questions in a traditional interview. Tell me about your strengths of interest. And then I want you to turn it around into saying, well, it's challenging for me when, okay? We've already talked about that. Why should we hire you? Think about that. That's why we did that homework. What is it that you're bringing to the table for this job? Help them connect what's going on the resume and why they should hire you over, someone else. Why are you the best fit? What are you bringing into this that is going to benefit them, that might be a little bit unique or different, or they maybe haven't seen it the way that you can see that it's such a great fit. And I will tell you that there's an art to a hiring manager being able to see your transferable skills. So you have to be your own advocate and say, you know what, when I was in my last position, I took really complex things and explained them down on a first grade level so that folks could understand. So I am really fantastic at breaking down complicated things into small pieces so that people can understand that. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about that I taught time and money to kindergartners. Did I explain it that way to the person that's interviewing me? No. But did I explain that that's the way my brain works? I work from the whole and I break it down into parts and I do it per the audience, however that audience needs for it to be. That's what I do. So you can look and use what you've done in the past and help them make that connection, because most people do not think, oh, kindergarten teacher, yes, that's an excellent facilitator, trainer, coach. That's just not the first thing. What the first thing is usually, do you still get to have snack every day? And yes, you do. It is one of the perks of kindergarten, and I miss it. Anyway, okay, why should we hire you? Make sure that you can advocate for yourself. And if you're having trouble with that, sit down with a friend and say, what do you think about me makes me a good hire? Someone that's your fan and who's going to cheer you on. It was not uncommon to have this question asked. What would your boss or coworkers say about you? If I talk to them, what would they say? How would they describe you? Oh, Dina's a team player. She does what's right for the team. She's going to get her stuff in early. She's going to make it happen. She's happy to help when I'm having a hard day. She has an encouraging word. Okay, so this is what my imaginary friends say about me. No, yeah, this is what real friends have said. But the thing is, we don't often look at ourselves from the standpoint of a coworker or a boss and how they view us, right? We tend to look peer to peer with each other, and we don't think about that. So think about that. Take the time. This would be one of those things that it would be a question I would want you to prepare for in advance. So you may want to take a picture of this slide so that you have these questions captured so that you can prepare, because before you go into an interview, you're not going to know if it's going to be traditional or behavioral. And then, why did you leave your last job? Why did you leave your last job? Well, you may have lost it for pandemic. I was on 3 projects for United Airlines and getting to go to Chicago every week up until March 13th. And then you guys all know what happened. And so I can absolutely explain that this is what was going on in my life. And then not worry about the fact that, hey, I haven't had as much work in this time. And so I've been learning, and I have been I've been creating curriculum, which is actually something that's super fun for me to do and I'm passionate about. So learning how to say that you have left your last job in a way that allows you to remain in dignity, I think is really important. We carry the wounds from our past, and if we're not careful, they will affect our performance in the future. So let's say that I lost my job, and I actually can think of a situation. I worked as a director over a learning center. I did cognitive learning for elementary school children. I loved it. And my boss was unethical. And I eventually figured that out and became uncomfortable and would not do something. For him, it was about selling this number of packages. And for me, it was about how much does the child actually need? I didn't want a family to be in dire finances because of, overbuying services that they didn't need. And so it was different. And I would not do what he wanted, and I got fired. So the next job that I went to, I didn't want to go into all that, right? That's putting somebody's tea out there, the business, nobody needs that. So I simply said, well, the situation with that center is there were not enough participants locally to actually support having a full-time director, and I needed a full-time position to be able to take care of my family. And so there came a time where, because the participation and the funding was not there, we went our separate ways. Now, did I lie? No. He was desperate because he needed participants so much that he asked me to oversell something, right? But I didn't throw him under the bus, and I didn't put any of the tea out there, and I told the truth in such a way that I could remain in dignity. And dignity is something that I need to ask you to guard. When I have worked with people that are looking for jobs, especially after a painful situation like what happened in that scenario, it's hard to carry your head up high. And so I'm just going to ask that you always answer, why did you leave your last job, in such a way that you have dignity. So keep that in mind. Why do you want this job? Do not say, I want this job because I need to make money for my family. Everybody wants a job for that reason. Everybody. So, you know what? I want this job because I love that one of the values that you have at Interstate Battery is fun. And I'm going to be spending a ton of time in this work environment. And man, I'm a hard worker, and I'll get it done, and I'll take care of things, but I want to have fun. And so I saw that that's one of your values, and that was really appealing to me. And then another thing that I saw in your culture is that you have a chaplain. And, I had never thought about a chaplain being in the workplace, but that's pretty incredible. If there's something that's stressing me out, to be able to have that person, come and pray for me, that's really appealing as well. And then I look at this position in particular, and you know what? There's some things that are going to be really challenging, and I like a good challenge, and I'm excited about that. And I have a track record in this area that I want to build on. And I actually think that this is a legacy job that I would be able to stay and grow in. You see how all of that is way more appealing than, I need money for my family. So that's why I wanted you to dig into the values and the culture of the, on the corporate site, and make sure it's a match. Make sure it's a good fit. Think how picky we are about where we go to church. Think how picky we can be even about where we go to eat, right? And then sometimes we just take leftovers when it's about work. And we spend so much time in that place, and the people that we're going to be working with can really make our lives a living hell, or it can be heaven. It really can. And so take the time to be strategic in the way that you present yourself and in the kind of job that you pursue. And I'm not saying that you may have to take a job that's not, the end all be all. I feel like everybody has to do that as well. So I'm not saying, limit yourself, but I am saying see that as a step and keep going, knowing, that's not going to be the end all be all, that you're going to keep going. Okay, you with me so far? Okay, awesome. All right, behavioral-based interviewing. So behavioral-based interviewing is interviewing based on discovering how the interviewee acted or reacted in specific employment-related situations that may or may not arise in the employer's workplace. Now, Dina, what are you talking about? I'm glad you asked. Here are some very specific questions, okay? Give me an example of an occasion when you used logic to solve a problem. Give an example of a goal you reached and tell me how you reached it. Describe a decision you made that was unpopular and how you handled it. And you handled implementing it. Have you gone above and beyond the call of duty? If so, how? Maybe you haven't done that at work, but maybe you've had to in a home situation, right? I think if you're a mom at all, hello. I've gone above the call of duty. I know you have too. Okay. Or actually, if you've taken care of a child in any manner, you don't have to be a mom. You can be any auntie or all of the above. Okay. What do you do when your schedule is interrupted? Give an example of how you handle it. Translation, do you have the people skills to handle that in a dignified way, right? Respectfully? Do you have good boundaries? That's what they want to know. Have you had to convince a team to work on a project they weren't thrilled about? How did you do that? Have you handled a difficult situation with a coworker? How? Tell me about how you work effectively under pressure. Now, remember your resume. I told you to create these bullet points that have problem, action, result. This is why. This is why. And if you've already taken the time to connect your resume, look through that job description and make those connections, right? If you've already taken the time to do that, then this is going to be a super simple interview for you, because you're going to walk in and you've got the stories and they're fresh, because you know on that job description, you already know what they're looking for. They have put it out there, but they're going to ask you these questions in a way that you're like, give an example of an occasion I use logic to solve a problem. Okay, it feels like such a weird question, right? But if in the past you have solved a problem and you have gotten a good result, I am willing to bet that you have used logic. We just are not used to people phrasing things like that. So we hear the question and go, huh? What? Okay, now I have a formula on how to do this, okay? I talked to you earlier about effective storytelling. It's direct, you're going to be logical, meaningful, it's going to be personalized. There's going to be that connection with you. So they ask you the question. I've just shown you the examples. They ask you the question. You are going to take 5 to 8 seconds to think about it. So you're pulling up which one of those examples that I listed on that piece of paper when I was prepping is going to be the best fit for this. Then you're going to have a 1-sentence summary, maybe 2. It depends on how complicated your situation was. So you're going to talk about the situation, the tasks, the action, and the result. See how that just parlays right over what we've been doing in that prep work for your resume? You see the connection? I'm trying to make it just all so simple that you've thought about all this and we come in with our strategy and you're empowered. So the S I want you to think about context, backgrounds. Our customers complained. Have you ever worked with people? Somebody complained, right? It's just what happens. Next is the task. Describe a problem and challenges. We faced a supply chain shortage, which that's something that happens. It's happening a lot right now. I know that in the Metroplex, things are better. My sisters and my dad live there. And here in Sulphur Springs, when I do my groceries, there's still stuff that doesn't come through. So that's something that legit you could share about, and it could probably be true. Action. Explain what you did and how. Well, we solved it, or I calculated, or we thought about this, and we did that, and we tweaked this, and we upgraded that, and we leveled up. There's all these different words that you can use to describe that action. And then make sure that you're very comfortable stating results. Brag on like you were bragging about your child, okay? State the benefits, the savings, the rewards, the recognition, the impact of was this. Here's the impact. So here's the one thing I'm going to ask you not to do. At the very bottom, do not think of new details as you answer. Say what you had planned for and end it. So what happens if you do where the new details come in, okay, is all of a sudden we're bouncing. And we need this to be a linear thought. We need it to be 2 sentences, hopefully max, if at all possible, right? So again, we're not putting fine colors in our picture that we're creating for them. We're just using a really wide spreading marker and coloring it in a little bit of a rough manner, but cohesive. We just don't want it to not be cohesive. And when you start throwing in the details, that's what happens. Okay. So before your interview, if you're online, I want you to check your lighting, test your microphone, test your headphones. You can use a chip clip to attach your notes to your laptop or to your camera. If you're not comfortable seeing yourself on the screen, cover that up. Cover up the part that's going to be you. Just get a Post-it and cover that part up so that you can see the other people and you don't distract yourself by looking away. My daughter had a job interview and she's like, Mom, I just kept looking at myself. And she's like, you know, and I would tell myself, look away, but I just kept wondering, is my hair messed up? You know, what's going on? So it just, the Post-it note, it's a good fix for that. Create a quiet environment, pets, children, spouse, you know. I was in a situation where it was a last minute kind of a job interview, and I was at my father-in-law's house. It was over New Year's, and I was actually pretty surprised that they basically said, can we please, we know it's a Saturday, but can we interview you? And I was like, sure. But I got in my car. I sat in my car and I interviewed in my car because I needed to make sure no dogs were going to bark. Nobody was going to walk in. You know, there would be no bodily functions going loudly, if you know what I mean, right? It's family, things happen. So I wanted to be professional, and I just explained to them I'm in my car because there really wasn't a room I could make sure that the noise level wouldn't have been really distracting. So I'm in my car, and you know, as long as you explain, people understand things like that. Have a glass of water, paper, and pen ready. So you never know when you're going to have a coughing spell. You never know when you're going to need a few more minutes to think. That is a great question. And here is my great answer. Okay, the water is something that can help you. Here's the rest of the story. If you start getting scared, going into fight or flight, the water will help. If you start getting emotional, this is something that overrides your emotion because it is a survival component of how God made your bodies. So the water is there to keep you calm and to give you time to think and to take care of that worst case scenario of a coughing spell. Log in 15 minutes early. Have your resume ready to email to the interviewer in case they need it. Now, they should have everything ready, but if we just go ahead and make sure that on our end it's okay. Now, what if I am interviewing by my phone, like what I did with my father-in-law, right? Well, I went in ahead of time before we went out of town and put in my draft of my email, my resume, basically what I thought I might want to say in the paragraph. And I just left it in the draft because I didn't know if I was going to have to do that or not. And then I could do that and still be on Zoom on my phone, right? And you just use the email that's on my phone. So I want you to again, think ahead strategically on some stuff in case you have to be in your car or someplace else where you're away from your computer. And then your cell phone, make sure the ringer's off. It can be there. You may even need to use it for what you're doing like I did. Just make sure that it is off on the ringer part. Okay. If you're in person, I'm going to run through these really quick because this doesn't happen as much anymore, right? Again, be 15 minutes early, be nice to everyone, especially a receptionist, have multiple copies of your resume on hand, bring a binder that has your notes and any reference letters. I think a binder is probably a little bit too thick, so I would probably recommend that you just have a thin folder. Make sure your cell phone is off. Be very mindful of your lotions and those types of things. There are some folks that are highly allergic, and just make that good first impression with the receptionist, because it is not uncommon for those who are hiring to circle back to the receptionist and see how you acted when you first came in. So, okay, during the interview, I want you to make eye contact. Okay, Dina, how do I do that? I am virtual. Okay, you're just going to have to get used to looking right into that camera and talking and pretend like it is an actual person so that you can make the eye contact. Can you see the difference from when I do that and when I have to look at the screen? You can. You absolutely can. So be aware of your body language and what it may be conveying. Okay, there's all sorts of things, and it depends on your view and your shot, but just remember the body language gives so much. Well, we know now, right? We have our masks on, and so much of our expression is hidden, and people don't know what we're thinking. I find myself still, if I'm in the grocery store or something, smiling at people, and then I crack up and I'm like, they can't even tell I'm smiling, So just be aware of your body language. I would say posture is a big deal. Carry yourself in such a way, head up high, shoulders back. It's going to make all the difference. Address everyone in the room when you're answering questions. So kind of look one way to the other, so it looks like I'm surveying the room. Again, are you in the same room with me? You're not. But if I look around, doesn't it give that feeling like I'm addressing different people? Okay, especially usually there's about 4 people, and usually they're in a semicircle. So just kind of making it like you're imagining that they're in the same room with you and you're looking at them. Ask follow-up questions. Okay, this requires you listening with the intent to understand and know that you want to ask questions. Speak at a volume so that everyone can hear you. Do not get too comfortable. So do not relax and start telling people stories that at the end of it, you're like, oh my gosh, why did I even tell them that, right? Have you ever been around someone that they just kind of do that all the time, and you're like, TMI, TMI. Okay, so just, remain professional. Make sure that you thank everyone for their time. Make sure that you ask what the next steps are and when they will be making their decision and what to follow up with in the office, who to follow up with in the office. Within 2 hours of your interview, send an email that has a thank you. Okay. In this email, you are reminding them of what you bring to the table. So it's similar, a shortened version of that cover letter that you sent starting things off. If they said it was a good, everything went well, and maybe you're on the 3rd or 4th round, make connections on social media like LinkedIn so that you can be connected to them. Because if you've made it this far, then they think highly of you. Even if they don't hire you, they might be willing to help you with someone else, or they might be willing to tell you when the next position that they have comes up. I've had that happen before where I connected with someone and they've kept me in the loop on some things at the company that they're at. Okay. Send a follow-up email within 2 weeks if you've not heard anything. Don't just let it die. Okay. Just make them be the person. Don't sit there and wonder if they've gone and hired someone else. This happened to me right before Christmas of this last year. I had made it to the 4th interview and was super excited. And the next thing I know, it is Christmas Eve and I have not heard anything. And I'm like, well, this is crazy. And I just sent an email and found out, the results in that situation. They weren't what I wanted, but at least I was able to relax and fully enjoy Christmas, right? So send that follow-up email, be respectful. They appreciate that. They that is not an inconvenience. Okay. It's my favorite time. It is the partner practice. So we're going to go through the instructions of the partner practice. We have prepared by, looking at your resume and thinking about it strategically with your interview in mind. We've talked about the different types of interviews, and now we're going to practice. Okay, the first one is going to be a mock interview. In this, we're going to go into our rooms. And now let me just do a quick pause for just a moment. Do we have participants that we're able to do this with? I'm not familiar with everybody that's on our Zoom right now.
And that's what I was wondering. I see we had someone new join us.
Okay.
And we had 2 people earlier, but I think they were both on the phone. So I don't know if,
I'm
not sure how that works with breakout, to be honest with you.
Okay, that's okay.
And Zanae, if my apologies if I said that incorrectly. I'm not sure if you are with us because I don't see a camera. So I don't know if you're with us by phone or if you're with us by online. Are you able to chat? Well, if you're on the phone, no, you won't be able to chat. Are you able to unmute yourself by chance?
Okay, here's what I want you guys to do on the phone. We may end up ending a little bit early, like maybe 5 minutes early, because we're going to skip this. But please take a picture of these questions and make sure that you are prepared to answer them. I want you to practice with a friend and get feedback that's realistic feedback, because the way that we grow, the way we innovate, the way we get better is through feedback. So here is the traditional interview questions. So take a picture of that as well. Okay.
Go back a slide.
Yes,
because I wanted to thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So now you all are going to practice. I've given you homework. I'm back in my teacher role. I've given homework, right? So you guys are going to practice and it's going to set you up for success. Okay. So here is just some quick things that are connected to social media. All right. Surveys show that at least 84% of organizations are currently using social media for recruitment, and that 9% of those who don't are going to begin. to do that, okay? So if you are not on Facebook and you are not on LinkedIn, then you are missing out, okay? Be wise on both of them, but please understand that this is something that is just a huge, huge benefit for you. Having an online profile is important. 47% of prospective employers said that if they couldn't find a job candidate online, they were less likely to call that person for an interview. I don't know that that's fair, but they're just being truthful with us, right? So keep that in mind. 30% of American adults don't have an online presence, and this could be hurting them in their job hunt. Okay, create the online presence on Facebook and LinkedIn. Be consistent in how you present yourself. Keep your profile updated and professional. Connect with business people and companies or people in the field that you are interested in, right? And then like pages so that you can stay up to date on job openings that they may post, and then be mindful of what pictures and comments you post. Okay, companies are using online to learn about you. And so you are no longer being pre-screened just through phone interviews and personality assessments. They now use social media profiles to take a deeper dive into personal lives and previous job experience of candidates. Information that once used to be private is now, it's pretty easily found. So that's why it's super important for you to be very honest on your resume. Information that once used to be, a candidate's background listed online should match the qualifications he or she has stated on a resume or shared during the interview. Okay, our next part is our final part, other than your questions. And this is one page, and it has a lot on it. And I had this on 3 different pages, but I decided if I was in your position, what I would really want is to be able to take a picture and have everything I needed. So that is why this is a little busier than some of my other pages. And hopefully that this makes sense. So technical prep for your interview. This is the checklist. Is my space prepared? I want you to find a private space to take your video call. Make sure that it is clean and tidy. Remember that they're going to be able to see the background. Use headphones to minimize background noise. Arrange beforehand activities for family members or guests. Set up your device or camera so it's clear and it's an unobstructed view. Don't get too close, don't get too far away. Since it's ladies on the call, be mindful of your makeup, because sometimes you'll do your makeup like normal and then you sit down and you can still look washed out because you're having to have more light on you than you necessarily do, that you use one of those lamps to light you up. So just be mindful and allow enough time to check and see and make sure that your makeup looks good, not only to you, but to others that are on as well. Use a natural lighting or side lighting to ensure your face is well lit. You can use those custom backgrounds if you want to. You can, for Zoom, it's at the Zoom video icon. It'll drop down and there's an arrow. So let's say if there's a messy background, you can use the virtual background and that'll take care of that mess for you. You need to dress like you would for an in-person interview in a business work environment. Avoid patterns or stripes, which can be really disturbing. They're distracting, not disturbing. My bad. I'm so sorry. I actually really like patterned, and so distracting. Wearing a bright white or a dark shirt can cause your camera to auto adjust the brightness, so that can affect how well we can see your face. So wear a less extreme color. Now I have to move something so that I can see this other side. Oops, one moment, that didn't work. All right, technology. Do I have a good internet connection? So if you're at home and you're using Wi-Fi and you keep getting kicked off, what you might want to do is actually get the physical cord and connect it to your box. It's what I have to do when I have a Zoom call and I'm training. I make sure to connect to my box so that it just gives you a better connection, and it's stronger and it's faster. So just keep that in mind. Do I understand the format? So there's all sorts of different formats. I've listed a few down further along in this. Research it, but then I'm also going to ask that you practice it with a format. I had a friend who was interviewing for a coaching position, and we did a whole Zoom call. And so I critiqued the background, I critiqued the lighting, I asked her to move her chair over here. We went through, we made up questions, and we went, it took us the full solid hour. And then we practiced the questions that she was going to ask the company. And, she told the story of her resume. We practiced all the different things that you and I have just discussed, so that when it actually came time for the interview, she was so much more comfortable. And she actually got the offer. But she was like, oh my gosh, all the nerves came out in the Zoom call with you, Dina. And then when I had the Zoom interview, it wasn't like that. So I just mean, you can critique the makeup, you can give the feedback, you can, you're just going to get more confident, and that's huge. So am I doing this right? Practice with someone, make sure your mic, your camera, your posture, your body language, practice those questions for the company. You have those already. And then, like I said, there's this format. It's Skype, Zoom, GoToMeeting, Google Duo, Google Hangout, FaceTime, Ring Central, and there's one I couldn't think of that is a virtual interview where they send it to you and you download an app and it has a question. Well, then you have about a minute to think about it and have the answer. Now, that sounds like, oh my gosh, that could be really hard. But if we've done our prep earlier, right, on the resume, that's not going to be as hard to be able to answer those questions, because it's either going to be traditional or it's going to be behavioral, and you've got those both covered in the way that we're setting up your resumes. Okay, I know I'm talking really fast, and I'm sorry about that. We have... Let's see. Yes, we have 6 minutes for your questions, for your comments. Who has something for me? Whoops. My bad. Trying to move this. Okay. So we're all good. You're all ready to go interview?
Miss Marilyn, do you have any questions? I want to thank you for joining us today. I see you've been here for the full presentation. We'd love to hear from you.
Okay. At this time, if there's not anyone that has anything, that's perfectly okay. I will say that if there is something that you think of and you want to reach out to Jasmine, she can send it to me, and I would happily follow up with an email. I want to be a resource for you. Like I said, I love, love, love being able to be in this position where I can help you get to that next level, and I'm happy to do that. Thanks again for your time, and take good care of each other and take good care of yourself, and enjoy your extra 5 minutes today. Thank you.
All right. And with that, this is Audrey Brown. I am the Executive Assistant to the Executive Director. Just wanted to keep everyone aware we have another class available next Wednesday. It is an online application assistance with Zan Wesley Holmes Junior Community Outreach Center. It's at 11:30. Please make sure to follow us on Facebook. We have a YouTube channel. Keep up with our calendars, and we look forward to seeing you guys. And thank you so much, Miss Deanna, for your time today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, and everyone have a great day.